Vector Breakthrough is still my favorite game mode in Arknights. I wanted to do another video talking about why I love this event, and also work on a clear for Vec 12. But unfortunately I don't have time for all of that. So here's a video of some special front clears, which is the part of the event I actually like. I'll save the Vector Breakthrough talk for some other time, but I'll leave a few words about Misery here, since the first few stages are pretty basic. Overall, Misery feels a lot easier than Mechanist. However, the buffs we get from Special Front aren't quite as crazy as last time. In particular, we don't have any strong damage buffs. And in fact, the most useful buff has a attack debuff attached as a downside. For 5-star Maleknights, Phase 1 of Vec 12 is straightforward. The real boss of the stage is actually Document. The only method I have for popping his damage reduction bubble is with a fully stacked Churny S2, which isn't realistically possible since most of the enemies in the upper lane don't even attack. As for the Special Front missions, I'd say overall that while the individual stages are about as difficult as before, the set overall is easier than last time. Part of this is because we have fewer bosses in the last couple stages, but the main difference is that the diversity of mechanics is much greater, so the demand for any specific niche is much lower. For example, Vector Breakthrough 1 had a really large number of stages with the Twilight of Volumon towers, which put a high demand for summoners, artificers, and zero-block units. As for the stages themselves, Stage 1 asks for a unit that can hit diagonally, or that can tank the beam. Stage 2 is most easily cleared with a ranged unit with some sort of defensive mechanic. Stage 3 is just a DPS check, and Stage 4 can be cleared with pretty much any pair of snipers that can hit air. Stage 5 is the first interesting stage. You basically need some way to deal with the dodge that the birds have, plus some healing for whoever's standing on the creep. The part that's really annoying are the turtles on the left, since you need to go out of your way to kill them before the creep gets to your main squad. Mr. Nothing is a pretty nice op here. He can clear the turtles, then fast redeploy himself over to help against the birds using his stun talent. Stage 6 is somewhat annoying. It's a bit contradictory, but Ethan is too useful an operator to waste on such an easy stage. But not having Ethan here makes the stage a lot more difficult. Gray is the next obvious choice here thanks to his AoE and multi-hit, but since he has an RNG talent, he ends up leaking stuff all the time. Strictly speaking, I'm pretty sure Midnight here is optional, but I'm not willing to grind talent procs just to make a successful clear slightly better. For me, a clear's a clear. Stage 7 looks like a pretty simple stage at first. Then you realize that Hypergryph are trolls, and they timed the last spy's appearance to overlap with the movement of the 3-block enemy. That's not a joke. The spies come at a relatively consistent pace of about 1 every 10 seconds or so. But the last 2 spies break this pattern at 6 seconds and 20 seconds. So for this stage, you need a way to burst down the last couple enemies, or kill the big guy from range. Or in my case, just bring a unit with 4 block. Stage 8 is another straightforward stage. You want some long range, like a Besieger. From there, you can either DPS the drones down before they get into range, or use something to tank the drones' attacks. In my case, since Male Knight sniper units suck, I've gone with the second approach. Totter is the best unit here since he's able to take the drones down one at a time, but I ended up using him in the next stage. Stage 9 is pretty much an ideal stage for Totter. He can hit invisible enemies, he's ranged so he doesn't take damage from the creep, and there's 2 very staggered enemies, which is great for his S2, which is most effective against single enemies. Even for non-Maleknights, Totter is probably still the ideal operator here. Assuming you're not just bursting everything down with 6-star units. Stage 10, I don't actually have much to say about this stage. I think it feels fairly tough, but I got lucky that my first strategy, which was basically just this but with Bryophyta, was effective. Once I realized I was getting done in by the boxers because of their physical dodge, I just switched Bryophyta with a Re. This could probably be optimized further, but I didn't have a strong need for any of these ops on any other stage. And as I said earlier, a clear's a clear. Stage 11 is another annoying stage. There's basically nowhere safe to deploy your operators because the casters on the right have so much range and damage. Thankfully, Noircorn can solo the swordsman on the left, so I can just procrastinate and deal with the casters later. Once I get baseline's healing up and running, pretty much any AoE unit can take out the casters. I'm using Executor since Special Front is pretty much the only opportunity I ever get to use him. Stage 12 is another interesting stage. The intended solution is clearly to prioritize the bone guys to convert the stage into a single lane map. But this stage also features a bunch of tightly grouped ranged enemies with low defense. It's about as close to an ideal scenario for Skybox as you can get. Figurino's job here is pretty much just to set up the first range tile for him, and to tank attacks while Skybox's skill is active. Stage 13. I love watching Niche Knights clears. It's always exciting to see how people use the lesser known operators and exploit their niches to the fullest. And I think all Niche Knights players are cool. Except the people who play 4 stars. I think they're freaks. I think they're freaks because they are willing to tolerate an operator like Ethan. I specifically play 5 stars only, and a big part of the reason is to avoid having to grind RNG with this guy. I can't imagine what it's like having to run a stage over and over, just hoping that Ethan gets the exact binds you need. Except now I can imagine it because for this stage, the only non-Ethan clear I can potentially see uses bobbing, which I don't own. Ethan's bind chance off skill is supposed to be 28%, but I refuse to believe that's correct. This clear requires Ethan to hit his first bind, and at least one of his next 2. At a 28% bind chance, even some really basic mental maths puts the odds at above 10%. So why did it take over 120 attempts for Ethan to finally manage to pull the opening off? And that's only the number of attempts after I started counting. And of course, the third time he managed to pull it off, he then went on to miss 4 binds in a row while his skill was active. I've had to listen to Ethan saying, "Don't panic if you suddenly notice a missing squad mate," so many times. Stage 14 is nice. You just need someone that can tank the berserkers. Very chill. No lizards in sight here. Wait, are the berserkers lizards? Stage 15 is a reasonable stage if you've got a good medic. Just put down a couple of guards, make sure the one on the left is tanky, then time your skills to try to get both killed at around the same time. Or you can kill the hammer guy and have a tanky op block the archer. Lots of great options, if you have a good medic. If you have a good medic. The only option I can see here for my units is to burst them down with tequila. The combination of Taraxacum's takeoff and Journey's increased bulk on skill give enough healing and damage avoidance to survive while tequila does his thing. I really wish I had Record Keeper. To be honest, I was seriously considering bringing in a female medic as a replacement for him, so I could do a non-burst clear, because I think those clears are more mechanically interesting and more fun to watch. But that would be cheating. And besides, Even if it is crude, it's fine. As I've been saying, a clear's a clear. Finally, we have stage 16, using Broca, Flamebringer, and Ami as a replacement for Record Keeper. Okay, look, hear me out. I can justify this. I don't have the damage to burst down the boss. I mean, Tequila could probably do it, but then I'd just be in the same situation as I am with stage 15. So now we need to be able to tank Lava's 280 arts DPS. Herald doesn't even output half of that off skill, and that's before we even start looking at the damage from the dragons. It's always such a massive bummer when I think I can make a cool clear, and then find I can't because I'm missing a critical operator. Like, ever since Record Keeper was announced, I've had this theoretical JT8-3 clear that I've been kicking around. He's such a great fit, but I can't even try it because I also need Noelle. But at least for JT8-3, I can be patient and wait until I eventually get one of them. For this event, we'll probably never get to see these stages again. And it's not like I'm pulling this clear out of thin air. A friend on the Maleknights channel pointed out this solution for me. Here's a screenshot. Yes, it would have probably been better if I used a normal single target medic here, but I don't have that many female medics E2'd. My options are basically Nightingale, Aya Berry, and Amiya. Of the three, I think Amiya is the closest in spirit. And yes, technically this also means I didn't actually come up with this clear on my own. But that's fine. I don't think there's any issue with a bit of collaboration. And I'd also like to think that I would have found the solution anyway. I mean, one of my first attempted strategies was Flamebringer, Herald, and Berkeris, which is already pretty close to this solution. So yeah, I'm calling this a win. I don't consider using Amiya here cheating, because I know the clear is doable with Record Keeper. And look, a clear is a clear, okay? As a bonus, here's a couple other clears that I didn't end up using, but I really liked. The first is here because I just get excited whenever I get a legitimate reason to use Chestnut's S2. It's just such a painful skill to use, but when all the stars align, it makes him look almost competent. The other, well, I mainly just like it because it's like a bit of therapy for me. It's a lizard-free AFK clear for stage 13. Okay, that's probably gonna be everything for Vector Breakthrough 2 for me. Thanks for watching.